starts small. A little comfort here, a little indulgence there. Before they know it, the middle class finds themselves in a trap that's eerily similar to a mouse chasing cheese. Everything looks normal from the outside. Steady job, decent home, occasional vacations, but inside, it's a cycle of financial stress that never really ends. That's the thing about the middle-class trap. It's disguised as stability, but it quietly suffocates any shot at real wealth. People don't notice it until they're too deep to climb out. Now here's where the real twist comes in. They're not poor enough to ask for help, and not rich enough to breathe easy. So they keep grinding, working harder, longer, hoping to make it someday. But that day never comes. They chase higher income without upgrading their money mindset. And without reprogramming the financial psychology they've inherited, they just earn more to spend more. It's like pouring water into a bucket full of holes and wondering why it never fills up. This is where the game shifts. Millionaires don't just think differently, they operate on an entirely different system. While the middle class works in the trap, the wealthy are busy designing the cheese. The issue isn't lack of opportunity. It's the subconscious money blocks that tell you, this is enough, or I'm not made for that life. And the worst part? Most people never question this scarcity mindset. But once you realize you're stuck in someone else's design, you can start breaking out, especially when you understand how distorted perceptions about wealth actually begin. Let's talk about one of the sneakiest illusions out there. Thinking you're doing well financially just because you're not broke. A lot of middle-class folks walk around with the belief that they're comfortable, when in reality they're one emergency away from a crisis. According to reports, earning just 25,000 Indian rupees a month places someone in the top 10% of India. Sounds impressive, right? But that doesn't mean they're wealthy. It means the rest of the population is even more financially strained. That's not success, it's a warning sign. This illusion creates a dangerous comfort zone. People compare themselves to those below them instead of aiming higher. They say things like, at least I have a job, or I'm better off than most. And those statements reinforce a rich versus poor mindset, without even realizing it. When you stop striving for growth because you're doing fine, you trap yourself in mediocrity. That's not a wealth mindset. That's just mental stagnation dressed as contentment. And contentment without progress? That's just a slower path to burnout. People often measure their financial status by the wrong metrics: salary, car, phone, even Instagram-worthy vacations. But they ignore the real markers: net worth, passive income, time freedom. A person making 2 Indian rupees lakhs a month but spending 2.2 Indian rupees lakhs isn't rich. They're drowning slowly. Breaking out of this illusion starts with asking better questions. How many months can I survive without income? Do I earn in my sleep? Am I growing or just maintaining? Until you shift those questions, you'll stay stuck chasing numbers that don't actually matter. There's this unwritten rule in the middle class. The bigger the wedding, the higher the status. But here's the truth. Most people aren't celebrating love. They're financing comparison. That one event, meant to be joyful, turns into a financial sinkhole. People drain their savings, take out loans, and even sell assets just to impress guests who'll forget the decor by next weekend. This isn't tradition. It's a social trap wrapped in fairy lights. And what's worse, it often shatters any chance of building long-term wealth. They call it the big fat Indian wedding, but for the middle class, it's more like the big flat net worth crash. In an attempt to mimic the rich, people fall into deep debt, thinking it's temporary. But the effects linger: EMIs, drained emergency funds, no room for investing. Instead of focusing on millionaire habits like saving aggressively and letting money compound, they sacrifice future financial freedom for a few hours of applause. It's the perfect example of how money beliefs get shaped by culture, not logic. And here's the irony: wealthy people don't overspend like that. They understand opportunity cost. Why blow 20 Indian rupees lakhs on a one-day event when that could be a down payment for a rental property generating monthly income? But the middle class, they spend to prove. It's a classic case of scarcity versus abundance mindset, thinking this is your one big chance to feel rich instead of creating a life where that richness is permanent. And once the wedding's over, what's next? Often, a loan waiting at the door. Debt used to be a last resort. Now it's a lifestyle. The middle class has normalized personal loans for everything: marriages, gadgets, vacations. But here's the twist. They're not borrowing for wealth creation. They're borrowing for consumption. And that's the most dangerous kind of debt. Feels harmless at first. Just a few EMIs, manageable monthly payments, but soon it snowballs. You don't even notice how fast a credit-driven life turns into a debt-driven trap. The problem isn't that loans exist. It's that people use them to live above their means. They confuse access to credit with access to wealth. There's a big difference. Wealth is ownership. Debt is obligation. When you buy a phone on EMI just to keep up appearances, you're feeding a scarcity mindset dressed up as abundance. Rich people borrow for leverage, assets, investments, cash flow. The middle class borrows to survive, or worse, to show off. That's not just bad math, it's broken psychology. And don't even get started on how debt impacts your subconscious money blocks. Living with constant repayment trains your brain to believe that struggle is normal. Kills your confidence. You stop thinking like an owner and start operating like a hostage. To reprogram your mind for wealth, you've got to stop using loans as a financial crutch. Ask yourself, would you rather rent a lifestyle you can't afford, or build one you can actually own? That question alone can shift your entire financial freedom mindset. Ask the average middle-class person where they put their savings, and chances are, they'll proudly say fixed deposit. It feels safe, stable, responsible, just like the banks want it to feel. But here's the kicker. Most FDs don't even beat inflation. That means your money is literally losing value while sitting safely in the bank. This isn't just a mistake. It's a result of deeply rooted money beliefs that confuse security with growth. And the system profits from that confusion. Banks are not your friends. They're businesses. And they're really good at making sure the middle class stays loyal to low-yield products. They wrap them in fancy names: guaranteed plans, wealth boosters. But underneath, it's the same slow drain on your future. It's designed to be complicated on purpose. Because if it's too confusing to understand, you won't question it. This is where the financial psychology of control kicks in. Keep people calm, keep them uninformed, and keep them trapped. Millionaires don't rely on bank products to grow their wealth. They focus on capital appreciation, cash flow assets, and smart risk-taking. But the middle class, they get stuck in traditional thinking. They're not taught to question. They don't reprogram their mind. For wealth, they obey the old rules. But here's the game changer. Once you realize the system isn't built for your growth, you stop playing by its rules. And that's when you start looking at alternatives that actually move the needle. After the lockdown, something shifted. People started exploring the stock market and mutual funds like never before. Apps made it easy, influencers made it exciting, and for a moment, the middle class felt like they'd found a shortcut to wealth. But here's the reality. Clicking invest without knowing what you're doing is like driving blindfolded. The stock market rewards strategy, not excitement. And when the market dips, which it always does, panic takes over and people pull out. That's not investing. That's emotional gambling. This isn't about avoiding the market, it's about understanding it. The wealthy study trends, analyze fundamentals, and diversify smartly. They see stocks and mutual funds as tools to build wealth over time, not overnight. The middle class, they want quick wins. And when things don't go as planned, they say, the market is risky. But it's not the market, it's the lack of knowledge. That's why tools like the Deserve Wealth Monitor are so valuable. They help filter noise and simplify decision-making for real, long-term growth. If you're serious about shifting from a scarcity to an abundance mindset, you have to invest in what you understand. That means reading books like The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, following smart investors like Monish Pabrai, and learning how millionaire habits differ from the average. Wealthy people think long-term. They don't react to headlines, they respond to data. That's the difference between building a fortune and blowing up your savings. But if you've ever felt a rush from a green candle, you know exactly how that dopamine loop begins. Ever noticed how good it feels to hit by now? That quick thrill, that tiny rush, it's not by accident. Emotional spending is wired into our brains through dopamine. One small purchase becomes a habit, then a coping mechanism. Stressful day? Shop. Feeling low? Shop. Middle-class families often fall into this pattern without realizing it. The problem isn't the money, it's the mindset. They're not spending from abundance. They're spending to escape. And that escape creates a new prison. The cycle is brutal. Buy, feel good, regret, repeat. It's not just a personal quirk. It's part of a bigger financial psychology trap. Marketers know this. That's why discounts are red, timers tick down, and apps send you, just for you, deals. It's engineered to trigger your brain's reward system. But what it really does, quietly robs you of your financial freedom mindset. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" ask, "What emotion is driving this purchase?" That one question can save you thousands. The wealthy understand their emotions around money. They build systems that protect them from impulsive decisions, like setting a 24-hour rule before buying anything non-essential. They master their mind before mastering their money. That's how you begin to reprogram your mind for wealth, by cutting emotional spending at the root. Because every unnecessary expense is a missed opportunity to invest, to grow, to build. And once you get that, you'll never look at shopping the same way again. So now you know the traps and, more importantly, how to escape them. But here's the real question. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you go back to old habits and familiar patterns? Or will you challenge the beliefs that have kept you stuck for years? Remember, wealth doesn't start in your wallet. It starts in your mind. Reprogram your money mindset, break free from the cycle, and start building habits that actually lead to financial freedom. Now ask yourself, what's one trap I'm still stuck in? What habit can I replace today to shift toward an abundance mindset? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if this video opened your eyes, imagine what it could do for someone else. Share it with your family and friends, because the more people who wake up to these truths, the more we all rise together. And hey, if you found value here, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss a chance to grow your wealth from the inside out.